Welcome to another episode of TeqTalk. I am Jas Kaur, and today's discussion is one I have been personally excited about. How AI is fundamentally reimagining the way we understand product analytics. So traditionally, analytics was all about dashboards, monthly, weekly, maybe daily refreshes. But now with AI, we are just moving real-time insights, personalization at the moment of action, and even synthetic users that help to predict outcomes before we actually launch any product. So joining me is someone who has been living and breathing this transformation. Ashish Arora, the head of engineering and ML at Autodesk. Welcome, Ashish. Thank you so much, Ashish, for joining us on the podcast. Really appreciate your time.
Pleasure is all mine.
Great. Before we actually deep dive into today's topic, why don't you let us know a bit about yourself, how you started, what you started working on, what exciting things are you doing right now?
Yeah, I am currently working as a head of engineering and machine learning for the product analytics organization, this company called Autodesk. It's a large enterprise company focuses on design and make software across different industries like AEC, manufacturing, entertainment as well. I myself have a background in computer science and mathematics. I did my master's in machine learning, so machine learning has been my primary focus for almost now the past decade. I started off as a traditional software engineer, more front end and back end, and then slowly transitioned into data and now live in the data at Autodesk.
Great. Pretty exciting. And I think today the conversation is going to be very interesting because you have been in this phase, the revolution of analytics, which we are going to talk about. You have lived the whole phase. So let's start with the foundation, Ashish. So most of the companies we know that are still in some sort of batch based analytics, like nightly pipelines, monthly BI reports. But this real time AI analytics has completely changed the entire game, right? If you zoom out a little bit, product analytics has its own version of industrial revolution, right? So it started with batch analytics, which was kind of Hadoop and Spark era, I would say, which used to give us the information of what happened last week or last month. And teams still wanted to have, insights of day or present. Then came the stage 2 or phase 2, I would say that, which is more like Kafka, Flink, and similar kind of technologies era. And suddenly you process all the events that have started coming in, like page views, clicks, app interactions in seconds or in sub-seconds, I would say. So this has really changed the whole dashboard thing. And now on top of that, which is a phase third, I would say, which is quite recent and interesting, which is AI ML integrated at inference, right? So this is an exciting phase, and it's not just analyzing, it's predicting and acting on top of it. So question to you, Ashish, is you have lived the whole era, I would say, of these three phases. What are the hidden challenges teams do not anticipate when they move from one stage to the next stage? And how to avoid repeating the mistakes at each step?
I think number one challenge that I would say that I've seen companies face, and like in my personal experience as well, is that sometimes it's also it's a more art than science as to when to use which type of technology as well, and that's what is one of the biggest questions that is looming in all our technologist mindset. So this is where I think I would say that some companies have seen make a transition to the streaming side of things or real-time analytics side of things rather much more quickly before setting up the real baseline of the batch analytics, because I think it's a bit more of a just how you were saying it, that like it's a step ladder, it's a pyramid of like, okay, let's set up our batch processing first, streaming processing after that, and then comes the layer on top of AI and ML based models and personalization and things like that. So this is where companies make a little bit of that mistake of rushing directly to that the second and the third layer without setting up the batch processing, which is actually in my mind still the base of a lot of the work that we still do. There is a lot of benefit to still like having those batch based processing large scale systems in place, because a lot of the visualization layers still work on that. It's not that all of everything, the whole world has moved to the personalization realm and to doing AI and inference at scale. The streaming services, I think, come into play only when you're starting to think about doing more of those real-time decision making versus just a visualization layer. Because if you put the streaming processes just in the back end of a tool, a Tableau dashboard that is going to be used for inferring product decisions, you don't need that to be like in milliseconds. So I think that is one of the biggest challenges that I would say that I still see rushing to just that first and the second and third layer.
What do you mean to say is basically understand the use case. You might not even need streaming or real-time analytics. You might just need batch analytics at first point of time. So do not rush. That is one of the important points you have mentioned. So when we talk about real-time or streaming analytics, speed matters a lot, right? So how to ensure that accuracy at this high speed is up to the mark and there is no compromise on that?
Yeah, I think accuracy and like it's always, I think that is a bit of a balance in our like architectural pillars when we're thinking about system design. So I think that is where it is again from, I would say the answer is really, it depends from use case to use case. I think one of the things that comes to my mind right now is I've heard of this use case of like Netflix actually using personalization at scale for their customers, where when you're browsing Netflix, they actually personalize even the thumbnails that you're seeing. And for that, you really do need latency that is like in milliseconds, because yeah, you can't like take long time for personalizing that, because of course that the time window that the user you're operating in with the user's context is very minimal and small. So I think that is one of those areas where like it is always from a use case to use case standpoint that you need to assess. And sometimes it's a hybrid model where you need to think about a delivery channel that needs to be milliseconds and you have to compromise on other things and might have higher costs, because that is where you need to really have the architecture support real instantaneous decision making and instantaneous personalization, versus some cases that you can be a little bit more relaxed around our latency and how we think about that and be more optimized on other fronts.
Yeah, Ashish. So I completely agree. And I have a really interesting stat with me. So, as per McKinsey, the companies, those who are really investing in real time, they see like 10 to 20% higher conversions than those who are just relying on the batch personalization. So, but let's unpack that. Lift doesn't come from more data, right? The volume is not that important. And it also comes from the architectures designed for sub-second inferences, right? So like how you have mentioned Netflix has great recommendation engine and which runs on real time and the embeddings updated per click, which is quite strong. And I think that means event streams are all sorted, feature stores that keep online offline features are quite consistent to avoid training. Inferences services are all sorted. So, Ashish, when once those building blocks are in place, right, all of these factors are in place, where do you see highest leverage points in the product to deploy AI models that shift clicks into the conversion?
Yeah, I think that is a great question. And that is actually a very interesting number that you just actually stated from the research as well. I think to me, like I would actually say that where that personalization needs to be is really in the context of what a user is exactly doing at this moment. Because I think sometimes I've seen like companies invest in like personalization where it might just be completely out of context for the user. And what I mean by that is if you think about like how, like, let's say you're using like even Microsoft Excel. And I don't know if you remember Clippy. It's one of those things that like use as an example a lot, but it was one of those things that was like way ahead of its time, where like Microsoft was trying to actually do some level of personalization with it, but it didn't really pick up as much. And I think one of the things that it was lacking at that time was this aspect of the streaming events, and like the real aspect of like the data at scale, and being able to collect all of the data in the background to be able to have such level of hyper personalization, where it started very strong, but it didn't ever pick up because the technology at that time was not really there. So I think that's where I would say the biggest values lie. It's in the real aspect of when the user really needs personalization,
Mm-hmm.
that time delivering that to them, versus out of that context when they might not be really thinking about something that is very specific in that context. So I think that example of Netflix that I was
Yeah.
mentioned earlier as well was from that same lens.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, that's really very powerful. So, do you think AI ML models are rarely the bottleneck? Most of times, it's the ecosystem around it.
Like I think where AI models usually like fail for companies is like
Mhm.
moving too quickly towards just like having a technology lens first, rather than really thinking from a deep customer value and product standpoint. I think that's where a lot of like companies, because there is so much buzz around AI, like everyone is like first reaction is that like, okay, let's jump on to the AI bandwagon, versus really thinking about where do we really need to apply AI. So I think
Yeah.
that where like that those issues and like areas where we see like the investment in AI not working out well is.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are in the space from very, very long. So, tell us some tips on designing the interventions that are, technically precise but still feel safe for human to the user, which still feels safe and, in terms of trust and biasing as well.
I think in that domain, I would say like that is, yeah, that is usually like it's top of our mind, because any data product that we build in our company, and like I've worked on myself as well, is that guardrails are very important, and guardrails can be like a multitude of different types of things. It starts with, for example,
Mhm.
we would have guardrails around even having subject matter experts or human expertise, having some level of bounds and checks on what the model is actually delivering.
Mhm.
The second would be even thinking about how the model is like model drifts are like having a very strong level of tracking on our models in production as well, understanding if there are any kind of drifts that we have started to see, that like outliers that have started to grow. Is the model starting to react in a way that we did not expect it to in the research phase? So I think those are like things that like we really have to think about when we are building the models, to ensure that there is level of trust that we can build with the customers, and also sometimes giving the customers the choices to actually opt out of certain level of things around AI as well.
Mhm.
Because that is where you can build more and more trust with the customers, as to like first is provide value, second is that the customers deem that this is not providing value, give them the option to actually opt out of it.
Yeah. So you still think that there are some use cases, great use cases, where you do not need any model support. It can still go without AI ML models, right?
Yeah, I would say that there are a lot of like, it's not that the whole industry is going to completely shift towards everything that is AI, because
Mm.
shift that we are like, I would say that there is going to be a lot of AI that we're going to use in like a lot of use cases, and it's going to be much more democratized in the future. But there are certain things that are still very deterministic.
Mm.
You really need to just utilize deterministic logic to code something still. That is not going to go away. Like if I have to like use a particular thing, and there is a particular button that I want to click on a website, that is going to be that button that I really want to click. That that's those are the things that you're not going to just like start to, everything is going to just turn into AI.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we are moving towards a lot of AI agents enhancements, and now it has gone to another level. So, traditional user research is kind of slow and expensive. But imagine that before you actually launch any feature, you have the synthetic users, right? And this is not any fiction. It sounds like fiction, but it has already been started. Where I have a couple of examples like Meta. Meta has published on using synthetic agents to stress test their recommendation systems at scale before actually they deploy the feature. And if I talk about Roblox as well, it is experimenting with AI driven synthetic players to evaluate new gaming mechanics, and without actually, I mean, before deploying into the production, they are just testing with these AI agents. Ashish, I know you are in this space from very long. You might have heard about this before. Let's talk about it and make it more interesting. What are the thoughts coming into your mind?
Yeah, I think that's a very fascinating topic, and I have you have personal experience around that as well, and like it is something that definitely is right now big in the industry. I think
Mhm.
the gaming industry has been thinking about it for years because that has a big challenge for them. The overall industry now, because I think with AI, one of the biggest things that is happening is the software development lifecycle is also shortening. So what we used to deliver in like a matter of months can now be done in a matter of weeks. And during that product engineering development lifecycle, our usual agile practices and development lifecycle was that we would do incremental delivery and do some level of user level testing and validations, user research. That is now also changing because you have to do that like now instead of months in weeks. Well, that is becoming a big bit of a human capital issue where user research is expensive. It takes time because it requires human capital, and that's where this whole idea of like having more and more, at least some level of validations that can be done some through synthetic users during your product engineering for incremental delivery phases as well. And even just ideation is something that a lot of companies and teams have started to think about.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, and I'm not suggesting in any way that like it's going to take away the need of user research. I think it's just going to make it a bit more concentrated as to how and when we invest user research because it continue to scale just human capital so that some things are going to become more easily validated using synthetic users, things that are more have been tested and proven, but things that are newer or novel that like might be a new kind of a feature or delivery that we want to pursue with customers. That's where we use traditional user research around.
Yeah. Another point which is coming to my mind is how do you really validate these synthetic simulations so leaders can actually trust them? Do you have some tips, ideas coming around?
Yeah, I would say like I think that's similar to how you would validate any kind of like even just user interactions if you're trying to like build an attribution model or a model that is going to predict some level of adoption on like even for example ads. You are in one sense also trying to predict the user behavior at that time as well, which is done using the same traditional methods that we have from a machine learning standpoint, which is using previous data to model in and think about okay what is the how this model is going to react on more future data. So I think it's in kind of methodologies that companies are thinking about from a perspective of how should we validate it. You can use previous types of research that we have done in the past and see, well, is our like synthetic models acting in the same way as how that traditional research was.
Yeah. Do you think these kind of users can really break down or they're just going to be flawless throughout?
Oh, I think they're gonna definitely like they're gonna break down for sure. I think there's gonna be it's still something that is like I would say far from becoming completely scalable. It's still like these are things that are like very experimental and like I think the good thing with AI is like it has at least opened new avenues like this that companies can start to think about, but it's gonna take us time to like get to a place where it's still reliable and scalable across multiple different use cases.
Absolutely. Whenever we create any AI ML model, that's completely fine. But when it comes to the executives, like CFO is going to ask me, show me ROI. So, how do you prove an impact on whatever product you are developing?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and that is a question that is top of mind for every executive. So I think for teams, usually like we have to have a bit of that culture embedded where like everything that we're doing needs to be first tied into a success metric. I mean, that success metric needs to be tied into the highest level company metrics. That might be P&L or retention or something else for that. And then from there, after we have defined that success metric, I think it's also very important to not just dive in and invest overly in a solution directly. For example, even like I think earlier we were talking about the transition from batch to streaming. A lot of things that require a lot of investment. And if like I were to just go to the C stuff and say that, okay, well, I need this many millions of dollars to just like revamp the entire infrastructure, that is a very hard sell. So that's where you need to really break it down into incremental delivery at every delivery step. Also showcase what is that incremental gain in our success metric that we started with. And I think that's how we can really prove that ROI in an incremental way to continuously improve on the value that any product engineering team provides.
Absolutely. So, do you think the companies which do not have legacy systems or infrastructure, they they are much faster than the traditional kind of company, those who have got massive infrastructure, and they are looking forward to step by step incrementing?
Yeah, I think that is usually the case that like you just have a leg up on a lot of different things. Because as I was saying earlier as well, it's almost that like even in the realm of product analytics, data products, when you're really thinking about like it's almost a step by step ladder. So like
Right.
someone is like at the bottom end of that ladder, the companies that are still playing catch up, they are, have a little bit of a disadvantage around like even this new world of AI and AI agentic era that we have started to think about. Because I think yeah, like there is a whole new layer if, on top of that application layer that we have in our OSI model that which is going to be that agent layer because the whole interaction model is changing with AI agents even on the web. But companies that haven't yet laid the ground foundation of like just the data layer and distributed data across the company, uh, they are going to still play a little bit of that catch up. And I think that's where you can really also invest a bit more aggressively if you want to play that catch up because the teams, the companies that have already achieved and gone up the ladder can do a bit more of that incremental development and move the needle one step at a time versus companies that are playing a little bit more of that catch up will have to be a little bit more aggressive in the initial phases.
Yeah, yeah. That's very insightful, Ashish. Before we actually wrap up, I would like to know from you what are the advice? Give me like one or two best advice to the leaders who want to build or scale an AI powered analytics product, but they do not know where to start with.
Yeah. I think the first one would be maybe it's going to sound a bit just cliched, but invest in fundamentals. I would say really invest in good data practices, which also include good instrumentation. Sometimes it becomes a little bit of a after the fact of like once you've done the development, okay, let's just also instrument because we want to collect the data, but be deliberate about that instrumentation as well because sometimes that is what you really need then to build the AI models on. And that's where the whole area of where like this whole big area of data engineering and like a lot of the part of research just becomes cleaning and like munging that data before or like before we can actually do anything meaningful out of that data. But it all comes and stems from not having the that data being an afterthought. So they just making sure that that's your like you're really focusing on your fundamentals. And I think from a the other thing would be from a leadership standpoint, invest early in at least having a bit more of your like vision and then break it down into that incremental delivery. Have a North Star in mind that this is where you're going to be at least in the next 3 years. And that's how anchor towards that and steer your ship towards it.
Great. So I think what you mentioned, I'm just going to summarize in two sentences. The first step is foundation, invest in the foundation. And second is make your vision clear, get the use case first, and then start delivering in chunks. Great. I mean, these are such important points. Thank you, Ashish, for bringing them. Other question, just the last one. So, what do you see as the next 3 to 5 years of product analytics with AI? Anything crazy is going to happen?
I think it's already happening. Let's say that the times we are in an AI revolution, and I think what I see happening already, and it is just going to grow and become completely like a norm in the next 3 to 5 years, is that earlier, I would say like maybe 5, 6 years ago as well, like the AI research and ML research used to take a lot of effort because you really need to actually like invest in building your own models as well. What is happening with the current LLMs is that AI is becoming much and much more democratized, which means cost of actually utilizing AI in your applications and building on top of it is becoming much and much lower because everything is getting democratized to just these foundation models, and the companies don't need to invest in very specific research but rather build on top of those AI and ML models that already exist. So I think that is a shift that is already happening where now like just general product engineering teams will have AI and ML at their footsteps. So they will be able to utilize it for a lot of just native use cases much more easily without investing and having very specific roles. I'm not saying that they're not going to be there. AI and ML research is going to still be there and very, very prevalent and rather have a much, much bigger impact in the next 3 to 5 years. It's just that that is going to be more focused on a particular new realm of problems that today were not even viable because the research cost was just so high versus now a lot of like, for example, like our general predictive models, things like that will become very democratized where like most engineering teams will be able to also just utilize LLMs and at least get some level of good results out of it to be able to just scale AI and ML. So we'll see much more like applications that are AI powered, and that is a big shift that is going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years.
Great. This has been such an exciting conversation. Ashish, thank you so much for your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.